What really happened to Toys R Us is one of the most heartbreaking betrayals in American childhood history. For decades, this was the one place that felt like it was built for kids, not adults. The huge red letters, the bright aisles that felt like they never ended, the wall of bikes, the rows of dolls and action figures that made your eyes go wide. People did not just shop there, they made memories there. And that is why the ending still feels so wrong. Empty buildings, locked doors, a brand that once felt permanent, suddenly gone from everyday life. It left millions of parents and kids with the same question. How did the biggest toy store in America lose the toy war? To understand it, you have to go back to a time when Toys R Us was not even a toy store. In 1948, a young businessman named Charles Lazarus opened a small shop that sold baby furniture. America had just come out of World War II, and families were starting fresh. Babies were everywhere. Parents needed cribs, high chairs, and strollers, and Lazarus wanted to be the guy who could provide them. But he noticed something that changed everything. The parents who came in for baby furniture kept asking for little toys too, small gifts, simple things to keep kids busy, and Lazarus saw the big truth hiding inside that pattern. Most people buy baby furniture once. But toys are different. Kids grow fast. Birthdays keep coming. Holidays keep coming. And parents keep buying again and again. So he shifted. He started filling more space with toys. Then he made the move that changed retail forever. In 1957, he opened a store built around toys, and it was nothing like the toy counters in department stores. It was big. It was packed. It felt like a warehouse of childhood. This was not just a bigger toy aisle. This was a new kind of store. Back then, toys were often treated like a side thing. You might buy a doll while shopping for socks. You might grab a board game while buying a lamp. Choices were limited, and prices were not always great. Lazarus flipped that on its head. He treated toys like the main event, and he built the whole store around one simple idea. If you give families one place with a huge selection, they will come. And the size was not just for fun, it was a weapon. A big toy store could buy toys in massive amounts, and when you buy in massive amounts, you can push toy makers for better deals. Better deals meant better prices. Better prices meant more parents walking through your doors instead of going somewhere else. Store by store, the idea spread. Toys R Us became the place you visited on purpose. It was not a quick stop. It was a trip. Parents would say, "We're just going to look," and kids knew that was a lie the second the parking lot came into view. Then came the branding, and it was genius because it felt like it came from a kid's hand. The backwards R looked playful, like a child wrote it with a marker. The colors were loud. The whole name felt like it belonged to kids, not to a serious business world. And the mascot sealed the emotional deal. Jeffrey the giraffe was friendly and safe. He made the store feel like a clubhouse, like this place was on your side. By the 1970s and 1980s, Toys R Us was not just growing, it was taking over. America was entering a toy explosion. Movies turned into action figures, cartoons turned into toy lines. Every new character had a toy, and every toy had versions, accessories, and big shiny boxes. Kids saw a commercial on Saturday morning, and Toys R Us was where they believed that dream became real. Walk into one of those stores back then, and you felt it right away. High ceilings, long aisles, shelves stacked tall like toy towers. Shopping carts clanked and rattled. Kids ran ahead. Parents tried to keep up, acting calm, even while their wallet was quietly panicking. And here is what really made Toys R Us feel untouchable. It became part of the American calendar. When Christmas got close, families went. When a birthday party was coming, families went. When the hot toy of the year was on every kid's lips, families went. Toys R Us did not just sell toys. It sold the feeling that childhood mattered enough to have its own giant home. It was where parents came to deliver joy in a box. It was where kids learned what it felt like to want something so badly they could taste it. They also understood something about adults that most people do not say out loud. Parents do not just buy toys, they buy peace for an hour. They buy a smile after a hard week. They buy the moment their kid hugs a box like it is treasure. Toys R Us turned those moments into a habit. Through the 1990s, it still looked unstoppable. They expanded into baby gear, They stacked bigger seasonal displays. They tried to keep the store feeling like an event, not just a place to pay and leave. To a lot of families, Toys R Us felt like the capital city of childhood. But while families were still walking the aisles, quiet problems were stacking up behind the scenes. One big problem was competition that did not look like a toy store at all. It was the superstore. Walmart and Target were selling toys too, but they were doing it in a way Toys R Us could not easily copy. Parents were already there buying groceries, soap, school supplies, and everything else, so grabbing a toy became a quick add-on. No special trip, no extra drive, no second parking lot. And the prices were often lower because those stores could afford to treat toys like a lure, not their whole identity. That hurt, because Toys R Us had massive buildings and massive costs. A giant toy store needs giant sales every single day to justify its size. If families stopped making the toy trip, the math got uglier fast. Then came the next shift, and this one was even more dangerous because it changed how people shopped at a deeper level. The internet. At first, it felt small. Kids still wanted to see toys in person. Parents still liked reading boxes and comparing things side by side. But little by little, screens started winning. You could search in seconds. You could compare prices without leaving your couch. You could order a toy at night and have it show up at your door like magic. Toys R Us knew they had to get online fast, and they rushed to keep up. They made a move that sounded smart at the time. They teamed up with Amazon to run their online toy business. The plan was simple. Toys R Us had the toy name people trusted. Amazon had the online machine. Together, they thought they would be safe. But that partnership did not stay clean. Fights broke out. Trust cracked. Lawyers got involved. And while the adults battled over contracts and control, the real world did not pause. Online shopping kept growing. Superstores kept growing. And Toys R Us was stuck trying to defend its future while still running giant stores that needed constant attention. To regular families, none of this was obvious yet. The signs were still bright. The aisles were still full. Jeffrey still smiled. It felt like the same old place. And then came the moment that changed the company's future in a way most shoppers did not understand at the time. Now is the moment to settle in, because this next part is where the story stops being about toys and starts being about money, power, and a deal made in 2005 that sounded like a rescue, but quietly put a heavy weight on Toys R Us that it could never really lift. The first thing that changed was not the sign outside, it was the mood inside. Store managers started hearing the same answer over and over when they asked for basic upgrades. No budget, no time, no extra staff. The stores were still packed with toys, but behind the scenes, the company was now living on a strict diet. And it was not because kids stopped loving toys. It was because so much money had to leave the company every single year just to pay what it owed. That pressure hit the company in the most painful place possible. Toys R Us needed to feel magical to win. It needed clean floors, bright displays, working demo buttons, and aisles that felt fun instead of stressful. But when money is tight, the nice-to-have things are the first to go. A broken shelf stays broken longer. Old carpet stays longer. Lighting stays harsh. A store that should feel like a wonderland starts feeling like a tired warehouse, and families notice even if they cannot explain why. And once families notice, their habits start to change. Parents begin to walk faster. They stop browsing. They stop doing the slow, let's see what's new lap. They come in with a mission, grab one thing, and leave. That matters because browsing is where extra sales happen. Browsing is where the store wins. When browsing dies, the store starts living only on the basics, and the basics are not enough to carry a giant building. Inside the company, the calendar became scary. In a toy business, the holidays are everything. A great Christmas season can hide problems. A weak one can expose them. Toys R Us started entering holiday seasons with less breathing room than ever before. They had to order the right toys at the right time in the right amounts, and they could not afford big mistakes. One bad year could turn into a crisis because the bills did not care if Christmas was good or bad. Then the suppliers started watching closely. Toy companies do not just ship toys out of kindness. They want confidence. They want to believe the retailer will pay on time. When a retailer starts looking shaky, suppliers protect themselves. They tighten the rules. They ask for faster payment. They limit how much they ship. And even if you never see those conversations, you feel the effect as a shopper. Shelves go empty at the wrong time. The store feels less full. The excitement starts slipping, because the hottest toys are the ones you cannot find. That is the cruel part. A toy store needs momentum. When the hottest items are missing, kids stop believing the store is the best place. Parents stop trusting it to deliver the big moment. And once that trust breaks, it is hard to rebuild, because parents will not gamble on a maybe when a birthday party is in 2 days. At the same time, the world outside the store kept moving forward. Shopping became faster and cleaner. Parents got used to checking prices in seconds. They got used to home delivery. They got used to not driving across town just to see what they have. This did not happen overnight, but Toys R Us felt it like a slow drain. The company needed to pour money into speed, technology, and shipping systems to match the new normal. But every big improvement had the same problem. It cost money up front, and the company was already bleeding money out the back door. Then came the punch that hit almost every family in America, the 2008 recession. When people feel scared about money, they cut back. They still love their kids, but they stretch gifts. They delay purchases. They choose smaller items. They skip the extra toy. That kind of shift is bad for any toy seller, but for a company already under heavy financial pressure, it was like losing oxygen. So Toys R Us tried to fight with the tools it still had. It pushed hard for big holiday moments, hoping excitement could overpower the fear. It leaned into baby products because parents will spend on needs even when they are cutting wants. It tried to make certain toys feel special, like you had to come there for them. But these moves were not a full cure. They were survival moves. The company was trying to keep the engine running while the car was falling behind in a race. And here is where the story gets even more frustrating. The debt did not only make the company weaker, it also made it slower. When you have to ask permission to spend, you lose speed. When every decision is filtered through money pressure, you lose creativity. Toys R Us was built on being bold. It was built on being the place that went bigger than everyone else. But now, even small changes could turn into long meetings and delayed plans because the company had to guard every dollar. That slowness showed up in the stores. Some locations got small improvements, but many felt stuck in time. The world was getting cleaner and smoother, and too many Toys R Us stores stayed loud, cramped, and worn down. And the worst part is that the brand name was still powerful. Parents still remembered the magic from their own childhood. Kids still wanted to go. But when they got there, the experience did not always match the memory. That gap between memory and reality is deadly. When you disappoint someone who wants to love you, you do not just lose a sale, you lose a believer. As the years passed, the company started getting squeezed in a new way too. More and more money was being pulled toward screens. Kids still loved toys, but many kids also wanted game systems, tablets, and digital gifts. Even when a kid wanted a toy, the toy was often tied to a movie, a game, or an online trend that moved fast. That meant the store had to keep up with faster waves of hype, and faster waves are harder to ride when your business is already struggling to breathe. By the mid-2000s, Toys R Us was still a famous name, but the walls were closing in. It had big buildings to pay for, huge seasonal swings, nervous suppliers, and a shopping world that no longer waited for slow movers. The company needed a bold rebuild, not a patch job. It needed stores that felt exciting again, and it needed a modern system that could compete in a world where people expected speed. But the financial weight was still there, and it kept dragging. Then something quietly terrifying started happening behind the scenes. More people began talking about the company like it might not make it, not in a dramatic way, but in a cautious way, in meetings, in supplier calls, in bank conversations. That kind of talk spreads like smoke, and when enough people smell smoke, they start acting like a fire is coming. Suppliers protect themselves, lenders tighten, shoppers get cautious, employees feel uneasy, and once that chain reaction starts, the company has to spend even more energy just calming everyone down, which leaves even less energy to fix the real problem. By the time Toys R Us reached the point where it had to admit it could not carry the weight anymore, the story was no longer about one bad decision. It was about years of being pulled in too many directions while the clock kept ticking. And the next moment is the one most people remember because it finally happened in public and it happened fast. The company stepped into a legal process meant to save it. But the moment that news hit, it changed how everyone around Toys R Us behaved, almost overnight. It started with a quiet meeting in the back of the store, the kind shoppers never see. Managers were handed new rules, new scripts, and new worries. They were told to keep smiling, keep the aisles moving, and keep the holiday machine running like nothing was wrong. But you could feel it in the room. Everybody knew the company was no longer planning for the future. It was trying to survive the next few weeks. Then the news hit the public, and it did not feel like normal business news. It felt like a warning siren. Parents started asking the same nervous questions at the register. Are gift cards safe? Are returns safe? Will this place still be open next month? When a store becomes a question, the whole mood changes. You are not shopping for fun anymore. You are shopping like the floor might disappear under you. The company tried to say it was a reset, not a goodbye. They talked about trimming weak locations and finding a path forward. But that kind of plan needs trust from everyone around you, and trust was already cracking. The toy makers who shipped the hottest products were not thinking about feelings or nostalgia. They were thinking about getting paid. If they felt even a small risk, they could pull back, tighten terms, or choose safer partners. That meant the store could lose the very toys it needed most, right when every kid in America was making a wish list. So the stores went into a strange new phase. There were more promotions, more signs, and more pressure to move product fast. But the energy did not feel like excitement. It felt like a store holding its breath. Workers were asked to do more with less, while also calming shoppers who were suddenly anxious. The job was no longer just helping a parent find the right Lego set. The job became emotional damage control all day long. Then came the moment that changed the story from, maybe they can fix this, this is really happening. Plans to keep the main U.S. business alive fell apart, and the company announced it would close its U.S. stores. Not a few locations, not a gentle downsizing. A full wave of closures that spread across towns like a bad storm. Suddenly, the giant red letters that once meant joy were now surrounded by closing signs that looked like they belonged on a different kind of building. That is when people rushed in, but not in the old way. Families used to walk in with wide eyes, ready to explore. Now many walked in like they were attending the last day of school. They stared at the aisles longer. They took pictures. They picked up toys they did not even need, just because it felt wrong to leave empty-handed on the final visit. You could hear kids asking why the store was shutting down, and you could hear parents trying to explain something they did not fully understand themselves. The clearance sales felt strange because they were both exciting and sad at the same time. Yes, prices dropped, but the store was being emptied like a house after someone moved out in a hurry. The best items vanished early. Then the shelves started looking uneven. Whole sections turned into bare metal. Displays became messy. The place stopped feeling like a toy world and started feeling like a building being stripped. For workers, it was worse than sad. It was personal. These were people who had built the store's holidays with their own hands. They unloaded trucks in the cold. They stayed late fixing aisles after closing. They helped grandparents find the exact doll their grandkid wanted. They watched kids grow up year after year. And now those same workers had to stand under "everything must go" banners, knowing the job they counted on was disappearing too. And the goodbye was not quick. That is what made it hurt. It dragged. Week after week, the store got emptier, and the joy drained out with the inventory. The bike racks thinned out. The game walls turned into gaps. The plush toys, the soft heart of the store, got scooped up until only a few lonely ones were left hanging. At a certain point, you could walk down an aisle and hear your own footsteps, which is not how a toy store is supposed to sound. When the last stores finally closed, the silence felt unreal. For decades, Toys R Us was part of the American background noise. It was always there, like malls and Saturday cartoons and birthday parties. Then one day, it just was not. Parents drove past buildings that used to glow, and now they were dark. Kids who had begged to go there were suddenly too old, and the place they remembered was gone before they even realized it could vanish. But the name did not disappear the way most people expected, and this is where the story gets almost creepy. Even after the stores shut down, the brand still had value. People still recognized it. People still felt something when they saw the logo. So different groups tried to bring it back in smaller, safer forms. There were experiments with smaller toy shops. There were attempts to revive it online. There were versions where Toys R Us did not stand alone anymore, but lived inside other retailers, like a memory being hosted in someone else's house. Some people were happy just to see the name again. It felt like finding an old friend's handwriting on a postcard. But others felt the difference immediately. Because the real Toys R Us was not only the logo, it was the scale. It was the feeling of walking into a space that said, "This whole place is for kids." When the brand shrank, the feeling shrank with it. And that is the shocking truth in the simplest form. Toys R Us was not killed by one single bad day. It was pulled apart by a world that stopped shopping the old way, while the company was trapped in a fight it could not win fast enough. Once the public started treating the store like a goodbye story, the goodbye became real. The brand could survive as a name, but the ritual of the giant toy trip, the wandering aisles, the sense that childhood had a headquarters, that was the thing that truly died. If you ever went to Toys R Us as a kid, tell me what you remember most. The first thing you smell, the aisle you ran to, the toy you begged for. And if you want more stories about the brands America grew up with and then quietly lost, subscribe so you do not miss the next one.